right, so you're bundled up inside, but your flock is out there braving the elements.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dive deep into winter chicken care
Right.
with advice from some seasoned pros.
Absolutely.
Acres of Adventure Homestead
Yep.
and Abode.
Yeah, those guys have seen some serious winters.
They really have. And what's interesting is how both of them kind of push back against that whole, like,
Oh, yeah.
chickens need to be coddled in the winter.
Yeah, they're tougher than we give them credit for.
Right, like they both advocate for that, like
Right.
less is more approach.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I have to admit, I've always been a little nervous about heat lamps.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And Acres of Adventure Homestead really drove that point home
Oh, totally.
with the story about the Coop fire.
Oh, gosh, yeah, that'll make you think twice.
Yeah, it's like, oh.
About fire safety, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
But it's not just the fire risk.
right.
Acres of Adventure Homestead also talks about the potential for shock. You know,
Oh, right.
if that heat source fails suddenly,
Oh, yeah.
the chickens get so reliant on that artificial heat
Totally.
that they're really vulnerable to a sudden temperature drop.
That's like going from a sauna into a snowstorm.
Exactly.
Not a good time.
No, not at all.
Abode actually suggests that heat lamps might be like a little outdated.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah, and they propose some alternatives like heated plates
Yeah.
or even heated roofs.
Heated roofs, now that's a new one.
Yeah, I know. Tell me more about that.
So instead of having that direct heat source like a lamp,
Yeah.
the heating element is actually integrated into the roof.
Interesting.
So it provides like a gentler, more even warmth.
Okay.
It's kind of like radiant floor heating, but for the roof.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Oak Abode really stresses acclimation,
Oh, yeah.
letting the chickens gradually adjust to the colder temps
Okay.
so they can build up their own tolerance.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So maybe instead of the heat lamp,
Yeah.
we should be focusing on just like
exactly.
a really well-designed coop.
A good coop is key.
Yeah. And both of them seem to be in agreement there
Totally.
on the importance of coop structure.
Yeah, Oak Abode is all about creating a draft-free coop.
Okay.
So it's sealed up tight against those horizontal drafts,
Right.
but still allowing for good ventilation.
Okay. So it's like draft-free, but not airtight.
Exactly. Got to have that airflow.
Right.
Yeah.
And Acres of Adventure Homestead.
Yeah.
They talk about needing a secure coop.
Right.
No leaks.
Yep.
No gaps for those icy winds.
I can just picture myself out there, you know,
I
in
know.
the middle of a blizzard.
Frantically trying to patch holes.
Yeah. With whatever I can find.
Yeah. Duct tape.
Exactly.
Yeah. But they both make a good point about ventilation.
Oh, for sure.
It's about finding that balance
Right.
between keeping the coop warm,
Yeah.
but also preventing that buildup of ammonia
Absolutely.
from the droppings.
Yeah. That can cause all sorts of respiratory problems.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good at all.
Now I'm really intrigued by Oak Abode's deep litter method.
Oh, yeah.
It's fascinating how they use the composting process.
It's pretty ingenious
Yeah.
as a heat source.
Right.
It's like they're creating this naturally heated floor for the coop.
Okay. So how does that work?
So as those microorganisms break down the organic matter
Okay.
in the deep litter,
Mhm.
they generate heat,
Right.
and that creates this stable, insulated environment.
Okay. So it's not like they're burning up in there.
No, it's subtle.
It's more about creating a consistently warmer.
Exactly. It's that stable, insulated environment
Oh,
that makes all the difference.
Okay. But isn't deep litter a lot more work?
It does require some management.
Okay. And what about rodents?
Good point.
Yeah.
Acres of Adventure Homestead recommends using hardware cloth along the bottom of the coop walls
Oh.
to prevent them from burrowing in.
Clever.
Yeah, and they also point out that a well-maintained deep litter system,
Okay.
where those droppings are quickly covered and composted,
Uh-huh.
is actually less likely to attract pests than a traditional coop with frequent cleanings.
So you're not constantly stirring things up.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've got the coop sorted.
We do.
Now let's talk about keeping those chickens fueled up.
Yeah, those feathered furnaces need fuel.
Right. It's winter. You know, I imagine they need a little something extra in their diet.
Just like we crave comfort food when it's cold outside,
Exactly.
they need a little boost too.
Right.
And both YouTubers recommend adjusting the chicken's diet for winter.
Okay.
Oak Abode is a big fan of black soldier fly larvae.
Okay. So those are...
They're high in protein and calories.
Okay.
Plus, they give a little bonus boost of calcium.
For strong eggshells.
Exactly. Healthy eggs all winter long.
Nice and Acres of Adventure Homestead.
They seem to prefer a higher protein feed in general,
Okay.
along with extra grubs, as they call them.
Okay. Any thoughts on like treats?
Treats.
Like cracked corn or sunflower seeds?
They do mention offering treats in moderation,
Okay.
but they warn against overdoing it. You don't want to throw off the balance of nutrients.
You don't want them getting hangry?
Real hangry chickens.
No. So it's about that balance.
Exactly.
Extra calories for warmth, but
Really?
keeping that good diet.
A nutritionally sound diet is important.
Yeah, but what about those, like,
What about those?
really frigid days?
The super cold snaps?
Yeah, when the temperatures just plummet.
Yeah. Well, what do we do then?
I mean, what do these YouTubers say?
Well, Abode actually had to deal with a -30
Oh, wow.
deep freeze a few winters back,
All right.
and they ended up temporarily moving their flock to the basement.
Wow, that's dedication.
It is, and they emphasize making that transition gradually
Right.
so you don't shock the birds.
Don't want to shock them.
No sudden changes.
Right. And they also mentioned noticing wild birds
Oh, yeah.
struggling.
In those extreme conditions.
Right. And that really makes you think,
It does.
you know,
About our responsibility.
yeah, as chicken keepers.
To provide that protection.
Right. Is it cruel to leave them out there?
It's a tough question.
Even if they might survive.
It really is, and there's no easy answer. It
Right.
comes down to local knowledge and good judgment.
Right. You got to assess the situation.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
You have.
A well-insulated coop,
Yes.
draft-free.
But ventilated.
Right.
Price.
A winter-adjusted diet.
Yep.
And being prepared for those what-if scenarios.
Yeah, extreme weather.
Right. Exactly.
Gotta be ready for anything.
But beyond the physical environment.
There's more to it than just the physical.
In diet.
Right.
There's another layer to winter chicken care.
We need to talk about their behavior.
Their behavior. Okay, so we're going to get into chicken psychology.
Chicken Psychology 101.
Stay tuned.
We'll dive into that in part 2 of our deep dive.
All right, that sounds good.
All right.
We'll be right back.
So we've talked about setting up the coop and adjusting their diet, but
Probably
like
us.
you said, we need to remember that chickens are living creatures.
They're not robots.
Right. They have their own
Yeah.
quirks and behaviors.
Exactly. So how do we know
Right.
if they're actually comfortable in the winter?
Well, that's where observation comes in.
Okay.
Both Abode and Acres of Adventure Homestead
Okay.
really emphasize
Yeah.
paying attention to those subtle cues,
Oh, yeah.
like their activity levels,
Good
their
point.
overall demeanor.
So, for example.
So if you see them huddled together all the time,
Oh, yeah.
you know, all puffed up,
Like little feather balls?
exactly, even during the day,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good sign.
They're cold.
They're feeling the chill.
Okay.
On the other hand, if they're spread out,
Right.
active,
Yeah.
their combs and wattles are a healthy pink,
Okay.
you can be fairly confident that they're comfortable.
So it's like us bundling up in a million blankets
Exactly.
when it's cold.
Exactly.
But what about when they seem a little too enthusiastic
Too enthusiastic.
about staying cooped up?
You mean,
Boredom?
yeah, is that a thing in the winter? Boredom can definitely be an issue,
Okay.
especially when they're spending more time inside. Yeah. Both YouTubers really stress enrichment activities to keep those chickens entertained
Okay.
and prevent any behavioral problems.
So, like, what kind of things?
Well, Abode suggests scattering treats
Oh, fun.
or scratch grains in the deep litter.
So they have to, like, forage for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little treasure hunt.
I love that.
Keeps them active and mentally stimulated.
Right, because they're working for it.
Exactly.
What about Acres of Adventure Homestead?
They recommend hanging vegetables
Oh, yeah.
or pecking blocks in the coop.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, and they even suggest making a chicken swing.
A chicken swing.
Yeah, from a sturdy branch or a piece of rope.
That's adorable.
Apparently, chickens find swinging quite entertaining.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's not just about warmth.
Right.
It's about creating a stimulating environment
Yeah.
to keep those chicken brains engaged.
You got to keep them busy.
You do.
Now, another thing I've always worried about is frostbite.
Oh, yeah, especially those exposed areas, like the combs and wattles.
Yeah, those cones are pretty prominent.
They are.
What do we do to protect those?
Well, Acres of Adventure Homestead mentions applying a thin layer of petroleum jelly
Okay.
to the comb and wattles.
So just like Vaseline.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
It creates a protective barrier,
Okay.
prevents the skin from drying out
Right.
and becoming more susceptible to frostbite.
Okay, good tip.
They also suggest using something called sweeter heaters.
Sweeter heaters. What are those?
They're these small battery-powered devices
Okay.
that clip onto the comb
Okay.
and emit a gentle warmth.
So it's like a little personal heater
Exactly.
for their comb.
Just for the comb. I love that. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Okay, so we've got some options.
We do.
Now, what about water?
Water, that's the other big challenge.
Now, keeping it from freezing.
It's a constant battle.
Fine.
Both Abode and Acres of Adventure Homestead agree that a heated waterer
Yeah.
is a must-have
Yeah.
if you live in a cold climate.
I've tried those DIY hacks,
Oh, yeah.
like ping pong balls
The ping pong ball.
and saltwater bottles.
Yeah.
They never really worked that well.
Abode had a similar experience.
Yeah.
It seems like those tricks just aren't
Yeah.
as effective.
As a good old-fashioned heated water.
A heated water is the way to go.
Oh, even with a heated waterer,
Even then,
you still have to.
you can't just set it and forget it.
Right.
Acres of Adventure Homestead recommends checking it
Oh, yeah.
multiple times a day,
Right.
especially during those really cold spells.
Make sure it's working.
Exactly. You don't want it freezing over.
No.
And speaking of being vigilant,
Yes.
both YouTubers talked about windbreaks.
Windbreaks.
Yeah, for those chickens who,
Brave enough.
brave enough to venture
On
out.
those nicer winter days.
Right.
So what do they recommend for that?
They both advocate for creating sheltered areas within the run
Okay.
using things like tarps,
Oh, yeah.
straw bales,
Good.
or even strategically planted shrubs
Interesting.
to block those harsh winds.
So they can still enjoy the fresh air.
Exactly,
But-
but they're not totally exposed.
Yeah, you're creating those little microclimates for them.
Exactly.
But even with windbreaks,
even then.
I imagine the run can get pretty muddy.
Oh, yeah. The dreaded mud season.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Especially in the winter.
Both Abode and Acres of Adventure Homestead recommend having dry areas within the run, maybe under a covered section or beneath an evergreen tree.
Okay.
They also suggest adding gravel or wood chips to high traffic areas
Okay.
for better drainage.
Right, so it doesn't turn into a mud pit.
Exactly. And Acres of Adventure Homestead even uses a thick layer of straw on the ground for extra insulation and to absorb moisture.
Okay, so run design.
Run design is just as important as a well-structured coop.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's not just about throwing them out there.
No, it's about creating a comfortable environment.
Right.
No matter the season.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about
What about the physical stuff?
the coop, the diet.
Yeah.
But what about
But what about their
mental well-being?
their emotional health?
Yeah, do chickens get
Do you think?
seasonal affective disorder?
Well, we can't know for sure
Right.
what's going on in those chicken brains.
Right.
But both Abode and Acres of Adventure Homestead acknowledge that the reduced daylight hours can affect things.
Right.
Like egg production
Okay. Yeah.
and overall mood.
The winter slump.
The winter slump.
So what do they say about that?
Well, they both suggest
Yeah.
considering supplemental lighting
Okay.
to extend those daylight hours.
Okay, so you're like tricking them into thinking?
Kind of like tricking them, it's spring.
Into thinking it's spring.
But how do you do that?
Well, they recommend using a timer.
To mimic natural sunrise and sunset patterns.
Okay.
And they say don't leave the lights on 24/7
Right.
because that can disrupt their sleep cycles and lead to stress.
So it's all about balance.
It is.
Now, I've always used those red heat lamps.
The red heat lamps.
Yeah, for supplemental light.
Yeah.
I thought that was better.
That's a common misconception, actually.
Oh, really?
While red light is less disruptive than bright white light,
Okay.
it can still interfere with their sleep.
Oh.
Abode actually did an experiment
Oh, wow.
comparing red light to LED white light.
Okay.
And the chickens exposed to the LED light
Yeah.
laid more eggs and showed fewer signs of stress.
Wow. So LED is the way to go.
LED seems to be the better choice.
Okay, I'll have to switch.
It's all about creating that healthy balance
Right.
for your flock.
Okay, so we're keeping them happy and productive.
Happy and productive in the winter.
Even when it's gloomy outside.
But even with the best care.
Even with the best care. Sometimes things go wrong.
Sometimes things happen.
So let's talk about health concerns.
Health concerns.
That can pop up in the winter.
Yeah. Are there any specific illnesses or
Yeah.
conditions we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, good question.
Well, both Abode and Acres of Adventure Homestead
Yeah.
emphasize biosecurity.
Biosecurity. What's that?
It's basically about preventing the spread of disease,
Okay.
especially in the winter
Okay.
when chickens are spending more time in close quarters.
Right. Makes sense.
So things like good hygiene practices,
Okay.
like cleaning and disinfecting feeders and waterers.
Okay. So it's like wash your hands, but for chickens.
Exactly. Wash your hands for chickens.
But are there any specific illnesses that are more common in the winter?
They both mention respiratory issues,
Right.
like colds and bronchitis,
Yeah.
especially in poorly ventilated coops.
So that ventilation is key.
Ventilation is super important.
Okay.
They also mention frostbite,
Right.
which we talked about earlier.
I know.
But perhaps the most serious condition they both address
Okay, what is it?
is something called fowl cholera.
Fowl cholera, that sounds kind of scary.
It can be.
Okay.
It's a bacterial infection that can spread quickly through a flock, especially in crowded or stressful conditions.
Right.
And Acres of Adventure Homestead actually had a personal experience
Oh, no.
with a fowl cholera outbreak.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, they talk about the devastating impact.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what are the symptoms?
The symptoms can vary,
Okay.
but they mention things like lethargy,
Okay.
loss of appetite, difficulty breathing,
Right.
and even sudden death.
Oh, gosh. So if you see any of that...
You need to contact a veterinarian immediately.
Okay.
Because prompt treatment with antibiotics can be life-saving.
So early detection is key.
Absolutely
It's
right.
about prevention.
Aside from those biosecurity measures,
Right.
both YouTubers recommend vaccination
Okay.
against fowl cholera,
Okay.
especially if you live in an area where it's prevalent.
Right. Or if you've had an outbreak in the past,
Okay.
they also emphasize reducing stress for the flock.
Right.
Because stress can weaken their immune systems.
Yeah, makes sense.
And make them more susceptible to illness.
So it's like us.
Exactly.
When we get run down,
When we get run down.
we're more likely to get sick.
Exactly.
And Abode also shared a story
Oh, yeah.
about a predator attack.
Yeah, they had a weasel
Oh, weasel.
get into the coop.
Oh, no.
And it's a good reminder that predators can be more desperate in the winter.
When food is scarce.
Exactly.
So how did they deal with that?
Well, they've immediately reinforced the coop, added extra latches, hardware cloth to any potential entry points.
Right.
And they installed motion sensor lights.
Oh, how clever.
Yeah, to deter predators.
Smart thinking.
Yeah, it's all about being proactive.
Okay. Any other predator tips?
Acres of Adventure Homestead had an interesting one.
Okay, what is it?
They recommend scattering used kitty litter. Used kitty litter?
Yeah, around the perimeter of the coop.
Cool.
Apparently the scent of ammonia from the urine can deter some predators. Like raccoons and opossums.
Interesting. So it's like a natural deterrent?
Yeah, it's a simple, low-cost deterrent
Right.
that can add an extra layer of protection.
Okay, so we've talked
We've
about
covered a lot.
coop design, diet, frostbite prevention, biosecurity,
Absolutely.
predator protection.
We've hit all the major points.
It's a lot.
It is.
But there's always more to learn.
Always more to learn.
So in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore those little unexpected things
moments
that you only learn
from experience.
From experience, exactly.
Yeah.
We've tackled the big stuff, coop design, diet, all those health concerns.
Right, the essentials.
But winter always throws those little curveballs.
Oh, yeah. Those unexpected things you just don't find in the textbooks.
Exactly. And both Abode and Acres of Adventure really emphasize that.
That flexibility, being adaptable is key in the winter.
I loved Abode's tip about having a backup plan for extreme weather.
Oh, yeah, like a plan B for when things get really gnarly.
Exactly. Having a temporary shelter set up just in case.
Smart thinking, especially if you're in an area with crazy blizzards or ice storms.
Right. And Acres of Adventure Homestead had some great practical advice, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
They said to use a hairdryer.
A hairdryer.
To thaw a frozen waterer.
Oh, that's brilliant. Simple but effective.
I know, right? I'm adding hairdryer to my chicken first aid kit.
Makes sense.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right?
No, definitely not.
Both YouTubers talked about the beauty of winter with chickens.
Yeah, those little moments of joy that make it all worthwhile.
Abode had this great visual of their chickens like bouncing around in the snow.
I love that picture, all puffed up like little feather snowballs.
And Acres of Adventure talked about that quiet satisfaction of seeing their flock thriving no matter the weather.
It's a good feeling.
It's like they're teaching us a lesson.
They are.
About resilience,
Yeah, finding joy even in the toughest conditions.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest one is that balance is so important.
Balance. Okay.
It's not just about keeping them warm and fed.
Right.
It's about letting them be chickens, letting them do their chicken things.
Yeah, express those natural behaviors.
Exactly, so they can thrive.
Physically and mentally.
Exactly.
And don't forget about observation.
Oh, yeah. That's crucial.
Those chickens are always talking to us.
They are.
If we just pay attention.
You just got to learn their language.
Exactly. So to our listeners out there, braving the winter with their flocks. We wish you a warm, cozy, and productive season.
May your coop be draft-free.
And your water is never freeze.
And may your chickens lay an abundance of delicious winter eggs.
And remember, there's a whole community of chicken keepers out there.
Right. We're all in this together.
Share your experiences, your tips, your winter chicken photos.
Let's all learn from each other.
That's what it's all about. Until next time, stay warm.
And keep those chickens happy.
We'll see you then.